An entitled passenger, Claire Reynolds, thought her business class aspirations gave her the right to say anything, even on an economy flight. Her complaint was quiet, delivered with a privileged sneer to a flight attendant. "It's just too many of them on this flight." She was complaining about the black passengers. She never expected the cabin door to open. She never expected the pilot to step out. And she certainly never expected Captain Marcus Cole. This isn't just a story about a racist remark. It's a story about a life-altering reckoning at 30,000 feet and the hard, inescapable karma that followed. Claire Reynolds despised LaGuardia. She despised the smell, a nauseating fog of burnt coffee, Cinnabon frosting, and the faint, sour tang of industrial cleaner that never quite masked the scent of stressed humanity. She despised the noise, the relentless, echoing announcements that were always just garbled enough to be useless, the incessant beep, beep, beep of a distant baggage cart, the screaming child who, in Claire's opinion, should have been sedated or left at home. But most of all, she despised Apex Air, Flight 815, and its cramped, non-ergonomic gate area seating. Claire checked her watch, a rose gold Movado, for the 10th time in 5 minutes, 11:42 a.m. Boarding was supposed to start at 11:45. Any delay, even a minor one, felt like a personal affront, a conspiracy by the universe to derail her. Today was not just a day. It was the day. In precisely 4 hours, she was scheduled to walk into the sleek, intimidatingly minimalist Chicago offices of Viridian Dynamics for a 3 p.m. final round interview. This wasn't just any interview. It was for the Vice President of Strategic Marketing. It was the job that would catapult her from the stagnant pool of senior management into the glittering stratosphere of the executive C-suite. It was the job that would finally make her ex-husband, Alan, stop with his patronizing, "Are you doing okay?" texts, as if she were the one who'd peaked in college. She clutched her leather briefcase, a stiff $800 Toomey that held her meticulously printed presentation, her portfolio, and a bottle of Xanax she only ever used for critical flights. This, she decided, was a critical flight. She'd almost thrown a fit when her current employer, a mid-level marketing firm called Omnicorp, had booked her in economy. "It's a short-haul flight, Claire," her boss, Dave, had said, oblivious to the nuance. "Policy is policy." Claire seethed at the memory. Policy. Policy was for people who didn't matter. After today, she would be the one making the policy. She would have a corner office, an expense account that didn't require itemized receipts for a $7 latte, and she would fly first class. Always. The gate area was a microcosm of everything she was trying to escape. It was a sea of mediocrity. People in sweatpants, people eating greasy pizza from a box, people letting their children run wild. She felt above it. Her sharp, navy blue suit was immaculate. Her heels were polished. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun that matched her mood. A ripple of laughter cut through her internal monologue. She looked up, her gaze laser-focusing on the source of the disruption. It was a family, standing near the windows, a man and a teenage girl, probably father and daughter. They were black. The man was well dressed in a polo shirt and pressed slacks, and the girl was deeply absorbed in her phone, but she'd just shown him a video, and his deep, rumbling laugh was, to Claire's ears, offensively loud. Claire rolled her eyes, a sharp, theatrical gesture. Of course. Some people just had no concept of public decorum, no awareness of the people around them trying to concentrate. She saw the man, David, ruffle his daughter Maya's hair. It was a gesture of such simple, uncomplicated affection that it somehow made Claire's annoyance curdle into something sharper. Apex Air is pleased to announce the boarding of Flight 815 with service to Chicago O'Hare. A voice crackled over the intercom. We will now begin pre-boarding for our military personnel, families with young children, and those needing special assistance. Claire tensed, gathering her things. She was in Group 1, priority access, but she still had to wait. She watched, disgusted, as a woman tried to board with a service dog that was clearly just a poorly groomed poodle in a vest. The world, Claire felt, was disintegrating into chaos. We now invite our Group 1 passengers to board. Claire was on her feet before the gate agent had finished the sentence. She shouldered past a young man in a hoodie, earning a, "Hey, watch it," which she summarily ignored. She was the third person to scan her pass. "Welcome aboard," the flight attendant at the door, a woman with Sarah on her name tag, said with a bright plastic smile. Claire grunted, already scanning the overhead bins, calculating, planning. Her seat was 12C, an aisle, thank God. She'd paid the $45 extra for it. She stowed her small roller bag with practiced, aggressive efficiency, taking up slightly more space than she needed before sliding into her seat. She immediately pulled out her laptop, balancing it on her knees. Time to review her talking points. Synergistic growth, brand optimization, omnichannel market penetration. The words were her armor. The cattle call continued. The plane slowly filled. She was dimly, irritably aware of the stream of people shuffling past, their bags knocking her shoulder, their apologies mumbled and inadequate. She was deep in a slide deck about Q3 projections when a shadow fell over her laptop screen. "Excuse us, ma'am." She looked up. It was them. The laughing man and his daughter from the gate, David and Maya. Her heart sank into the pit of her stomach. Their seat assignments, displayed on their phones, were 12A and 12B. The window and the middle. "You've got to be kidding me," Claire muttered, loud enough for them to hear. David, holding his carry-on, just offered a tight, polite smile. "Sorry, just need to get in." With a sigh so heavy it was practically a structural component of the aircraft, Claire unplugged her laptop, gathered her things, and stood up in the aisle, pressing herself against the opposite seat to let them pass. She watched as they settled in, the rustle of their jackets, the click of the seatbelt, the zip of a backpack as Maya pulled out a set of earbuds. It all felt like a performance of her personal inconvenience. She sat back down, her entire body rigid. She was now trapped, pinned against the aisle by a teenager in the middle seat. She couldn't work. She couldn't think. She tried to open her laptop again, but her elbow was already bumping Maya's. This was impossible. She looked around, her frustration mounting. Across the aisle, another black family was settling in. A mother, a father, 2 small children. A few rows up, a group of young black men, probably in their early 20s, were laughing and stowing their bags, clearly excited about a trip. Claire's mind, already primed for grievance, began to build a case. It wasn't one thing. It was the cumulative effect. It was the vibe, the noise, the demographic. It just felt wrong. It wasn't what she was used to. It wasn't the sterile, quiet, majority-white environment of the executive lounges she was so desperate to inhabit. This wasn't a flight to Chicago. It felt like, she thought with a curl of her lip, a bus. She needed to fix this. The flight attendant, Sarah Jenkins, was working her way down the aisle, doing the final compliance checks. Sarah was a consummate professional, which was a polite way of saying she was exhausted. She'd been flying for 9 years, and her feet already ached. She was running on 3 hours of sleep and a stale airport pretzel. Her smile was a feat of engineering, held in place by sheer force of will. "Ma'am, "I'll need you to put that laptop away for takeoff," she said to Claire, her voice practiced and pleasant. Claire looked up, and Sarah recognized the type instantly. The diamond tear scowl, the air of someone who believes the rules of physics and the FAA bend to their will. "In a moment," Claire said, not moving. "I'm actually at the end of the boarding process. I need it stowed now, please. Under the seat in front of you," Sarah said, the please doing heavy lifting. Claire let out another one of her weaponized sighs and began the slow, dramatic process of shutting down her computer. As she bent over, she leaned into the aisle, creating a conspiratorial bubble of space between herself and Sarah. "Excuse me," Claire whispered, her voice a low, urgent hiss. Sarah paused, bracing herself. This was usually the moment a passenger asked for a free drink, complained about the seat width, or tried to explain why their oversized, personal item absolutely had to stay at their feet. "Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?" "I have a problem," Claire said, her eyes flicking nervously toward Maya in the middle seat, who was oblivious, music playing in her ears. "I am a very frequent flyer with Apex, top tier, and I cannot sit here." Sarah's internal script loaded. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The flight is completely full. We're in the process of closing the door. I'm afraid I can't move anyone." "No, you don't understand," Claire insisted, her voice dropping even lower. She was leaning so far into the aisle now that other passengers had to shimmy around her. "It's not about the seat. It's about the situation." "The situation?" Sarah repeated, her professional smile beginning to flicker like a faulty neon sign. Claire leaned in further, her face a mask of manufactured concern. "I just don't feel comfortable." "Comfortable? Is the passenger next to you bothering you?" Sarah asked, glancing at Maya, who was now dozing, her head resting on her father's shoulder. No, not her specifically. It's all of them," Claire whispered. Sarah's blood ran cold. She knew, with a sinking, acidic certainty, where this was going. "Ma'am, I don't understand what you're implying." "Oh, come on," Claire scoffed, as if Sarah were a simple-minded child. "Just look around." She made a vague, sweeping gesture with her chin, indicating the family across the aisle, the young men a few rows up, and the father and daughter sitting inches away from her. "I'm an executive. I fly this route all the time. I know the kind of people who fly to Chicago for business. This is not it. It feels, I don't know, it feels unsafe. There are just so many of them." Sarah's training took over. De-escalate, clarify. Do not engage. "So many? Of whom, ma'am?" she asked, her voice deliberately flat. Claire's face contorted in frustration. Why was this so difficult? You know, she finally whispered, the word sharp and venomous. "The black people. It's just too many black people on one flight. I don't know what kind of element you're letting on board these days, but it's making me extremely nervous. It's a security risk. You need to move me. To first class, probably, as compensation." For a full 3 seconds, Sarah Jenkins didn't breathe. The roar of the engines powering up, the click of overhead bins, the murmur of the cabin, it all faded into a dull, high-pitched ringing in her ears. David, in 12A, had not been asleep. He'd been resting his eyes. He heard every single word. His body went rigid. His daughter Maya was still asleep on his shoulder. His first instinct was a protective, paternal rage, so potent it made his hands shake. He wanted to stand up and yell. He wanted to demand this woman look him in the eye and repeat what she'd said. But he also knew he was a black man on an airplane, and that a scene would end badly for him. Not for her. So he stayed very, very still, his heart hammering against his ribs. In 13C, the row directly behind, Ben Sullivan, a 28-year-old software developer, had also heard it. He'd been idly scrolling through TikTok, but the venom in Claire's whisper had cut right through his music. He looked up, disbelieving. He saw the woman's pinched, pale face. He saw the flight attendant's frozen expression. Slowly, carefully, Ben angled his phone. He propped it on his knee, his thumb hovering over the screen. He wasn't technically recording, yet, but he was ready. Sarah Jenkins finally found her voice. It was clipped, cold, and all traces of an airline's forced pleasantry were gone. Ma'am, what you have just said is not only inappropriate, it is discriminatory. I am not moving you. What? Claire's face flushed with indignation. How dare you? I am a paying customer. I am expressing a valid concern. I will have your job for this. Get me your supervisor. I am the lead flight attendant for this cabin, Sarah said, her voice rising just enough to be audible to the surrounding rows. And per Apex Air policy and federal regulations, I am required to report any incident that creates a hostile or discriminatory environment. This is unbelievable, Claire huffed. You're discriminating against me for having a feeling. I demand to speak to the pilot. Stay right here, ma'am, Sarah said, her voice like ice. You'll get your wish. Sarah didn't walk to the front of the plane. She strode. Her movements were sharp, her face a thundercloud. She bypassed the forward galley and went straight to the cockpit, punching in the keypad code for the reinforced door. She slipped inside, and the door clicked shut behind her, leaving a confused, murmuring cabin in her wake. Claire, in 12C, was fuming. She crossed her arms, a self-satisfied, aggrieved look on her face. See? She muttered, loud enough for David to hear. Now we'll get some service. David said nothing. He just gently squeezed his daughter's hand, waking her. Maya stirred, pulling off her headphones. What's going on, Dad? Just stay quiet, baby, David murmured, his eyes fixed on the front of the plane. There's a situation. Ben Sullivan, in 13C, pressed record. He framed the shot on the back of Claire's severe blonde bun, but the microphone was picking up everything. Inside the cockpit, Captain Marcus Cole and his first officer, a young man named Tim, were running through the final pre-flight checklist. Flaps set, takeoff data confirmed, Tim was saying, when the door opened. Captain, Sarah said, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. Marcus Cole looked up. He was a man in his late 40s, with a presence that instantly commanded respect. His uniform was immaculate, the 4 gold stripes on his epaulets gleaming. He was a former Air Force pilot, had flown C-17s in combat zones, and had been with Apex for 15 years. He was also a black man, a fact that was, 99.9% of the time, completely irrelevant to his job. This was the 0.1%. Sarah, what's wrong? You're white as a sheet, Marcus said, his deep, baritone voice a calm contrast to her agitation. We have a passenger. 12C. A woman, Sarah began, her words tumbling out. She's refusing to sit in her assigned seat. She's demanding to be moved to first class. Because, she says she's uncomfortable with the demographic on the flight. Marcus Cole's eyes narrowed. Define demographic. Sarah took a shaky breath. She said, and this is a direct quote, Captain, it's just too many black people. She said it's a security risk. The cockpit went utterly, profoundly silent. Tim, the first officer, just stared at his instruments, his face pale. Marcus Cole's expression didn't change. He didn't yell, He didn't slam his fist. He simply placed his checklist on the console, his movements deliberate. He unclipped his seatbelt. The slow, heavy click echoed in the small space. "Captain?" Tim asked, his voice cracking. Are we calling security?" "Not yet," Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I will handle this." "Marcus," Sarah said. She's awful. She demanded to speak to the pilot. She has no idea." "I'm aware," Marcus said. He stood up to his full 6'3" height, ducking slightly to fit in the low-ceilinged space. He adjusted his uniform jacket, pulling the sleeves down with a sharp tug. "Tim, hold the before takeoff checklist. Inform the tower we're holding at the gate for a passenger-related incident. Do not, under any circumstances, close that cabin door." "Yes, sir," Tim said, already reaching for the radio. Captain Cole pushed open the cockpit door. The effect on the cabin was instantaneous. A pilot never comes out, not unless it's to shake hands with a kid or because of a catastrophic failure. All conversation, all rustling, ceased. Every single passenger, including Claire, snapped their attention to the front. Marcus Cole emerged from the cockpit and stood for a moment at the front of the first-class cabin. He surveyed the plane, his gaze sweeping over the rows. He was not just a man in a uniform. He was the pilot in command, the final, absolute authority on this aircraft, and his entire bearing radiated that authority. He began to walk. His footsteps were slow, measured, the sound of his polished black shoes a funereal drumbeat on the thin carpet of the aisle. He walked past first class. He walked past the Comfort Plus rows. He walked and walked until he arrived at row 12. Claire Reynolds, who had been expecting a supervisor named Gary or Steve, looked up. Her mouth fell open. She saw the 4 stripes. She saw the imposing professional figure. And she saw, with a jolt of cognitive dissonance so strong it made her stomach lurch, that the captain was black. Captain Marcus Cole stopped, standing directly parallel to 12C. He didn't address Claire. He didn't even look at her. Instead, he turned his body slightly and looked at Sarah, the flight attendant, who was standing just behind him. "Ms. Jenkins," he said, his voice not loud, but carrying with absolute clarity in the tomb-like silence of the cabin. "Please repeat, for my benefit, the nature of the passenger's complaint." Sarah stood tall. "Yes, Captain. The passenger in 12C, Ms. Claire Reynolds," she'd gotten the name from her manifest, "has stated that she is uncomfortable and feels unsafe due to the demographic on this flight. She has requested to be moved, as there are, and I quote, too many black people on board." The words hung in the air, dense and toxic. A collective gasp rippled through the rows. Passengers who hadn't heard the initial exchange now understood. Phones previously hidden were now being openly raised. Ben Sullivan's camera was perfectly in focus. Now, and only now, did Captain Cole turn his head. He fixed his gaze on Claire Reynolds. It was not a gaze of anger. It was worse. It was a gaze of profound, weary, and surgical disappointment. Claire's face had gone from indignant red to a blotchy, terrified white. This was not the script. This was not how this was supposed to go. That's not... I was speaking in confidence," she stammered, her voice a reedy squeak. "It was just a concern. I am a high-value customer. Captain Cole held up a single gloved hand. Claire's words died in her throat. "Ma'am," he began, his voice a low, resonant baritone. "My name is Captain Marcus Cole. I am the pilot in command of this Apex Air flight, and on my aircraft there is no high-value passenger. There are only passengers, and there is no confidence when it comes to bigotry. He paused, letting the words sink in. "You have stated," he continued, "that you feel unsafe. Let me be clear about the security environment on this plane. I am responsible for the safety of every single soul on board. That includes the family you are sitting next to." He nodded, with immaculate respect, toward David and Maya. "Sir, ma'am." David nodded back, his face a mask of stone. "It includes," Captain Cole continued, "the other families on this flight. It includes my crew, who you have disrespected. And it includes me." He tapped his own chest, right over the pilot's wings. "Is my presence on this flight, ma'am, a security risk to you?" Claire Reynolds simply stared, her mind a blue screen of death. She was trapped, she was humiliated, and she was, at her core, a cornered animal. So she did what cornered animals do. She attacked. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is reverse discrimination. You're ganging up on me. I'll have your job. I'll sue this airline. What is your name?" "Cole, I will have your badge." The threat, so potent in her mind, evaporated in the pressurized cabin. Captain Cole didn't even blink. "My name is Captain Marcus Cole," he repeated, "and I will be flying this aircraft to Chicago. You will not." The finality of the statement was absolute. "You have, in a matter of 2 minutes, violated federal airline regulations," he said, shifting into a new, even colder, more official tone. "You have failed to follow the instruction of a flight crew member. You have, by your own admission, created a hostile, discriminatory environment that interferes with the duties of my crew and the comfort and safety of all other passengers. You are, by definition, a security risk." He turned his head. "Sarah, call the gate, have airport security and a gate supervisor meet us at the jet bridge. This passenger is being deplaned." "You can't do this!" Claire screamed, finally finding her full volume. "I have a meeting. It's the most important meeting of my life. You don't know what you're doing." "On the contrary, ma'am," Captain Cole said, already turning to walk away. "I know exactly what I'm doing. I am ensuring the safety of my flight." He didn't look back. He walked to the front, spoke quietly to the gate agents who were now at the open door, and disappeared back into the cockpit. The door clicked shut. For 30 seconds nobody moved. The only sound was Claire's ragged, high-pitched breathing. She looked at David. He stared back at her, his expression unreadable, which was somehow more damning than anger. She looked at Maya, who was now watching her with a teenager's purest, most withering contempt. "Well, what are you all staring at?" Claire snapped at the cabin at large, and that's when it happened. In 15B, an older woman started to clap. It was a slow, deliberate clap, clap, clap. Then the man next to her joined. Then the family across the aisle from Claire. Within 10 seconds, the entire cabin, from the front to the back, erupted in spontaneous, thunderous applause. It was a wave of sound, a public judgment, a deafening celebration of her eviction. Claire's face, which had been pale, now turned a deep, splotchy crimson. The tears that came were not of remorse. They were of pure, unadulterated rage and humiliation. Shut up, all of you!" she shrieked. 2 formidable airport security officers, followed by the gate supervisor, Brenda, were now walking down the aisle. "Ma'am," the first officer said, his hand resting on his belt, "we need you to gather your belongings and come with us. Now." "I'm not going anywhere. I paid for this flight." "Ma'am, you can come with us voluntarily, or we can remove you. The choice is yours," the officer said, his voice flat. Claire knew, finally, that she had lost. The game was over. The humiliation was complete. Sobbing, she stood and fumbled with the overhead bin, pulling down her roller bag so violently that it slipped and slammed into the aisle. She grabbed her Toomey briefcase, the one holding the presentation that was supposed to change her life. She began the long walk of shame. As she stumbled up the aisle, she was a pariah. No one would meet her eyes. They just watched, and Ben Sullivan, in 13C, filmed it all. He filmed her tear-streaked, makeup-ruined face. He filmed her stumbling over her own bag. He filmed her exiting the aircraft to the sound of a cabin united in applause. The second she was on the jet bridge, the plane door was sealed behind her. The sound of the latch was the sound of a guillotine. Captain Marcus Cole's voice, now calm, professional, and reassuring, came over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain, speaking. We apologize for the short delay. We had to deplane a passenger who was unable to comply with our standards of basic human decency. We are grateful for your patience and cooperation. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for departure." The cabin, once again, broke into applause. Claire Reynolds was not led away in handcuffs. The security officers were not arresting her, a fact she would later try to use to her advantage. Instead, they were simply escorting her, a sterile term for a deeply humiliating process. Each officer, a large man with the weary, impassive face of someone who deals with the public's worst impulses daily, had taken one of her arms. They were not gentle. Their grip was firm, professional, and utterly non-negotiable, a human forklift removing a problematic pallet. She was marched back up the jet bridge, her high-end Toomey briefcase banging awkwardly against her hip, her roller bag, which the second officer had grabbed, rattling behind her. The few gate agents who were still managing the boarding door stared, their faces a perfect, practiced blend of "nothing to see here" and "oh, it's another one." The sound of the terminal hit her first. In the quiet, pressurized bubble of the plane, her world had been small, her voice large. Here, in the vast, echoing cavern of the LaGuardia B concourse, she was instantly just another piece of human noise. The beep, beep, beep of a baggage cart, the garbled announcement for a flight to Boston, the distant, frantic crying of a child. It was the same symphony of mediocrity she had despised an hour earlier. But now, she wasn't passing through it on her way to something better. She had been ejected into it. "She's all yours," the first officer said, depositing her unceremoniously in front of the main Apex Air customer service desk. Not even the gate desk, that was for passengers. This was the desk for problems. The officer dropped her roller bag next to her. It wobbled and tipped over. Neither officer moved to pick it up. They just turned and walked away. Claire stood there for a full 10 seconds, vibrating. She was a raw, exposed nerve ending. Her face was a ruin of smeared mascara and blotchy, furious red. The entire world, it seemed, was conspiring to destroy her. "Next in line, please." The voice was flat, tired, and utterly unimpressed. Claire looked up. Behind the counter sat a woman in her late 50s, her hair a stiff, dyed blonde helmet. Her name tag, pinned to her navy blue Apex blazer, read, Brenda. 15 years of service. Brenda had seen it all. She had seen missed wedding tears, drunken bachelor party belligerence, and full-blown meltdowns over lost luggage. She was a gatekeeper of a low-level hell, and her face was a fortress of professional neutrality. Claire, still operating on the adrenaline of her perceived status, stumbled to the counter and slammed her Toomey briefcase on the scale, scattering a stack of bag tag receipts. "I need to be on the next flight to Chicago," Claire demanded. It was not a request. It was an order, issued by someone who still believed she had the authority to give them. Brenda looked at Claire. She looked at the briefcase. She looked at Claire's tear-streaked face. Then, with a slow, deliberate sigh, she turned to her computer. "Name? Claire Reynolds, Reynolds. She spelled it as if Brenda were an idiot. I am a 100K miler, top tier. I was unjustly removed from my flight by a rogue pilot. I need to be in Chicago by 3 p.m. This is critical. Brenda's fingers moved over the keyboard. Click, clack, clack, click. The sound was maddeningly slow. On her screen, which Claire couldn't see, a large red box had instantly populated over Claire's reservation. Instant report filed, 11:58, am passenger. Reynolds, Claire, FLT, Apex, 815 code, 7.4, discriminatory conduct, PAX, code, 11.1, failure to comply, crew instruction, pilot in command, M. Cole, action, deplaned, do not rebook. PNR locked. Brenda read the report. She read Captain Cole's brief, devastatingly precise summary. Her expression didn't change by a single pixel. "Ma'am," Brenda said, her eyes still on the screen, "I see your flight, Apex 815. Yes, my flight, which I was kicked off of, has just pushed back from the gate," Brenda continued, ignoring the interruption. "It's on its way to Chicago." She pointed out the great glass window, where the plane, at that very second, was indeed rolling backward, its engines beginning to whine. Claire's stomach lurched. "Well, then get me on the next one. There's a 1 p.m. flight, Flight 902. Put me on that, in first class, as compensation." Brenda's fingers clicked again. "I'm afraid Flight 902 is fully booked." "Then the 2 p.m., I don't care. I have to be in Chicago by 3 p.m. Claire's voice was rising, cracking, a high-pitched shriek of panic. "Don't you understand? I have an interview. It's at Viridian Dynamics. It's the VP role. It's everything." Here, Brenda finally stopped typing. She swiveled in her chair and gave Claire her full, undivided, soul-weary attention. "Ms. Reynolds," she said, her voice dropping into a tone of final, bureaucratic judgment. "There is no 1 p.m. flight for you. There is no 2 p.m. flight. There are no flights for you, at all." What are you talking about? Just book it." "I cannot just book it," Brenda said. "Captain Cole, as the pilot in command, has, per federal and company regulations, banned you from Apex Air, effective immediately. Your ticket has been voided. Your frequent flyer status is frozen. All your future bookings have been cancelled, pending a full executive security review, which can take up to 6 months. You are not permitted to fly on this airline." Brenda, with a small, theatrical flourish, turned her monitor so Claire could see. She pointed a perfectly manicured pale pink nail at the screen. All Claire saw was her name, and over it, in a flashing blood-red banner, "Passenger banned. Do not book." The words didn't compute. "Banned? Banned? For what? For having an opinion? For a feeling? You can't do this. This is America. Get me your supervisor." Brenda leaned forward, her plastic smile gone, replaced by the grim, satisfied look of a public-facing employee who finally gets to deliver the bad news. "Ma'am, I am the supervisor, and I'm telling you, you're grounded. Now, if you'll please step aside, you're holding up the line." Claire looked behind her. There was no line. It was just her, alone in a sea of indifferent tile. She stumbled back from the counter, her mind a blank, roaring void. Grounded, banned, frozen. The words echoed. The 3 p.m. interview. Robert, oh God, Robert. Her rage, so potent seconds before, was instantly extinguished, replaced by a cold, sharp, existential terror. Her career, her life. She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking so violently she almost dropped it. The rose-gold Movado on her wrist read 12:15 p.m. She had time. She could fix this. She could call Robert, explain. He would understand. He had to understand. She found his name in her contacts. Robert Shaw, Viridian, Her thumb hovered over the call button. She took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to reassemble the Claire Reynolds executive persona. She stepped into a quieter corner near a charging station, her back to the terminal. She hit call. It rang once, twice. Robert Shaw's office. This is Amelia. The voice was crisp, young, and impossibly efficient. Amelia, I need Robert. It's Claire Reynolds. It's an emergency. A pause. The word emergency was a landmine. Ms. Reynolds, Mr. Shaw is preparing for his 3:00 p.m. candidate review. He's not available. No! Claire's voice was too sharp. You don't understand. It's about the 3:00 p.m. There's been an incident with the airline. I need to tell him I'm going to be late. A frosty silence. Ms. Reynolds, Mr. Shaw's schedule is booked back to back. If you're going to be late, just put him on, Claire shrieked, all pretense of professionalism gone. She heard a muffled sound, the assistant's hand over the receiver. Mr. Shaw, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's Claire Reynolds. She's not here. She says there's been an airline incident. A moment later, Robert's smooth baritone voice was on the line. But it wasn't the warm, collegial voice from their previous calls. It was flat. Cold. Claire, where are you? My assistant shows your flight landed 10 minutes ago. He was tracking her. The realization hit her. He was a man who tracked logistics. Robert, thank God, she said, activating her victim voice, the one she used when a project was late. Robert, you're not going to believe what just happened. It's the most unbelievable case of discrimination. This pilot, he threw me off the flight for no reason. There was a long, cold, profound silence on the other end of the line. It stretched for 5 seconds, then 10. It was the sound of a man reevaluating a multi-$100,000 decision. Claire, Robert said finally, and his voice was no longer flat. It was arctic. The vice president of strategic marketing at Viridian Dynamics is a public-facing role. It requires impeccable judgment. It requires the ability to navigate complex social and professional environments with zero friction. But it wasn't my fault, she insisted, her voice cracking. It was him. It was reverse discrimination. Claire, Robert said, his voice cutting her off like a scalpel. Being thrown off a plane is not an incident, like a flat tire. It is a reason. There is always a reason. And frankly, none of the possible reasons are acceptable. You're either a security risk, a medical risk, or a judgment risk. And I cannot, in good conscience, put a judgment risk in front of our board of directors. No, Robert, please, she was begging now, all pride dissolved. I can be there. I'll rent a car. I'll drive. A 6-hour drive? You'll miss the entire review. Claire, this isn't going to work. We have a packed schedule of other highly qualified candidates who made it. Robert, don't do this. It's been done, Claire. We'll let you know. Don't worry about coming to the office. We'll be in touch. And then, the most final, brutal sound in the corporate world. The click. The line went dead. Claire Reynolds stared at her phone. The 3:00 p.m. interview was gone. The VP role was gone. The corner office, the expense account, the respect. All of it had just evaporated on a dirty terminal carpet. She had lost. In the span of 30 minutes, she had lost her flight, her status, and her future. She was stranded at LaGuardia, a place she despised, with nowhere to go, and in her pocket, her phone gave a small, insignificant ping, a notification. It was from Ben Sullivan's phone, which had just connected to the O'Hare Wi-Fi during his layover. The video was uploading. The ticking clock of karma had just struck the hour, and the day was far from over. Ben Sullivan's layover at O'Hare was 45 minutes. He found a seat by his connecting gate, plugged his phone into the charging port, and for the first time watched the video he had taken. He watched it once, then twice. The audio was chillingly clear. Claire's venomous whisper, "Too many black people." Sarah's professional, yet stunned, recoil. And then, the main event. Captain Marcus Cole, emerging like an emissary of judgment, his voice a calm, deep rumble that cut through the cabin's silence. Ben watched the entire magnificent speech again. He watched Claire's face contort from arrogance to disbelief to pure, unfiltered rage. He watched her stumbling, humiliated walk of shame, punctuated by the defiant, spontaneous applause of the entire cabin. Ben wasn't a viral content creator. He was a software developer. He wasn't malicious, but he had a keen, almost painful sense of justice. This felt important. He felt, with a certainty that settled in his gut, that the world needed to see two things: the casual, venomous racism of the passenger, and the absolute, unshakable integrity of the captain. He opened his X, formerly Twitter, account. His follower count was a paltry 212, mostly college friends and co-workers. He didn't care. He uploaded the clip, a 2-minute, 20-second edit of the most critical moments. He hesitated over the caption, wanting to get it right. He typed, "On my Apex Air flight, 8:15, from LGA to ORD today. This woman in 12C, Claire Reynolds," her name was on her briefcase tag, complained to the flight attendant that there were too many black people on the flight, and she felt unsafe. She demanded to be moved. She clearly didn't expect the pilot in command to step out. "His name is Captain Marcus Cole. This is how you handle it." Sound on. The applause at the end? Wow. He tagged Apex Air. He hit post. He put his phone in his pocket, boarded his connecting flight to Denver, and thought nothing more of it. When he landed in Denver 3 hours later, his phone was no longer a phone. It was a brick of solid heat, vibrating so intensely against his leg it felt like a low-grade electric shock. He couldn't even open his notifications. They were cascading faster than the OS could render them. His post, picked up by an algorithm that recognized conflict and justice, had been a spark in a dry forest. It had been retweeted 10,000 times before his flight had reached cruising altitude. By the time he landed, it was at 500,000. It had been ripped, re-uploaded, and was now the #1 trending video on Reddit's Yahoo Public Freakout. A-list celebrities had quote-tweeted it. News organizations were already sliding into his DMs. "Mr. Sullivan, do you have a moment to talk?" But the true, terrifying engine of the internet had already done its work. The name he'd provided, Claire Reynolds, was all it took. Within an hour, internet sleuths had her entire digital life exhumed. Her LinkedIn, her employer, Omnicorp, her proud class of posts from her alma mater. Her name was now indelibly linked to the video. It wasn't a passenger anymore. It was Claire Reynolds, Senior Marketing Manager at Omnicorp. Claire, meanwhile, was in her own personal purgatory. She had checked into the LaGuardia Airport Marriott, a monument to beige indifference. The room smelled faintly of industrial carpet cleaner and broken dreams. For the first hour, she was a supernova of rage. She paced the room, her immaculate suit now rumpled, her face a tear-streaked ruin. She was the victim. She was. She had been publicly humiliated. She had been attacked by that captain. She sat at the small desk, powered up her Toomey-cradled laptop, and began to draft a letter. It was addressed to the CEO of Apex Air, the FAA, and the New York Times. It was a masterpiece of self-aggrandizing delusion. It used phrases like grievous emotional distress, targeted discrimination by a hostile crew, and abject failure to accommodate a high-value customer. She was demanding $5 million in damages and the immediate public firing of Captain Marcus Cole and the flight attendant, Sarah. She was so absorbed in her own righteous fury that she didn't notice the first few pings from her personal email. But she did notice when she tried to log in to her company's Slack channel to complain to her boss, Dave. Access denied. Your account has been suspended. Please contact your system administrator. A cold, sharp icicle of fear pierced her rage. That was wrong. That was a mistake. She tried her work email. This account, creynoldsomnicorp.com, cannot be found. No, she whispered, her hands suddenly clammy. No, no, no. She fumbled for her phone and dialed Dave's personal cell. He picked up on the first ring, which he never did. He didn't say hello. He roared. Claire, what the hell did you do? Dave, thank God, she cried, the tears starting again. You won't believe what happened. The airline, I know what happened, Claire, he shouted, his voice tinny and furious. The entire world knows what happened. I have a video of my senior marketing manager being applauded, as she's kicked off a plane for being a racist. Is that about right? What? What video? She stammered. Oh my God, Dave breathed, his voice filled with a new, terrifying kind of disdain. You haven't even seen it. Go to Twitter, Claire. Go to any news site. Type your own goddamn name. We have 4,000 unread emails in the info inbox. The company's main line has been ringing off the hook for 2 hours. Our social media guy had to lock the company's accounts. The client for the new Q2 campaign, the one you've been working on for 6 months, they just called. They're pausing the contract, pending a values review. You are a walking brand apocalypse, Claire. Dave, I can fix this. It was a misunderstanding. No, you can't. You're done. HR is sending the formal termination to your personal email. Your benefits, your access, your employment, it's all terminated. Effective 2 hours ago. Just don't ever call this number again. You've ruined. Jesus. He hung up. Claire's hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. She opened a browser. She typed her name. There it was. Her face, filmed from behind. The audio, her own voice. Too many black people. She watched, horrified as Captain Cole appeared. She watched him dismantle her, piece by piece, with a calm she now recognized as utterly lethal. She watched her own pathetic, shrieking defense. And then she heard it. The applause, the sound of 100 strangers celebrating her total and complete annihilation. The video had 12 million views. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She picked it up, numbly. Is this Miss Claire Reynolds? The voice was cold, professional, and dead. It was Cynthia from HR. Cynthia, Claire, this call is to formally notify you that, as of 3:42 p.m. Eastern Time, your employment with Omnicorp has been terminated for cause, specifically for gross misconduct and violation of the company's code of conduct and public-facing ethics policy. Your final paycheck will be mailed. We will be sending a Cobra packet to your address on file. Do you have any questions? Claire's mouth was full of sand. Thank you. Goodbye. Click. She stared at the beige-patterned wallpaper of the hotel room. It felt like the walls were closing in. The job, her 6-figure salary, her entire career, gone. But in the back of her mind, a tiny, insane ember of hope still flickered. Viridian. The VP job. This was a test. Maybe a high-stakes corporate drama? She could spin this. She could walk into that interview and her laptop pinged. A Google News alert she had set up for Viridian Dynamics weeks ago. The headline made the room tilt. Viridian Dynamics issues statement on viral Apex Air. Incident denounces candidate. She clicked. It was a formal, public-facing press release, already posted on their corporate LinkedIn and sent to every major newswire. Viridian Dynamics was made aware this afternoon of a deeply disturbing video filmed on an Apex Air flight. We have confirmed that the individual in this video, Ms. Claire Reynolds, was a candidate for a senior executive position at our firm, with a final round interview scheduled for today. We wish to be unequivocally clear. The views expressed by Ms. Reynolds are abhorrent. They stand in direct opposition to the core values of Viridian Dynamics. Our company is built on principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we have zero tolerance for racism, bigotry, or hatred in any form. Ms. Reynolds's candidacy has been terminated, and she will not be considered for any role at this company, ever. Furthermore, we believe that true leadership is exemplified by action, not words. The actions of Captain Marcus Cole, in his professional, calm, and decisive handling of this incident, were a masterclass in integrity. In his honor, Viridian Dynamics is immediately donating $50,000 to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and we are sending a formal commendation to Apex Air for fostering a crew environment where such decisive, moral action is possible. This was the final destination, the hard karma. The interview she had coveted had become a platform for her public execution. The company she was desperate to join had not just rejected her, they had publicly disavowed her, celebrated the man she tried to destroy, and cost her an imaginary $50,000. It was the single most humiliating, comprehensive, and public professional failure imaginable. She threw the laptop. It hit the wall with a dull, unsatisfying thud and slid to the floor, the screen now a spiderweb of cracks, the Viridian Dynamics logo still glowing faintly from behind the wreckage. Far away, in Chicago, Flight 815 had landed smoothly. Captain Marcus Cole was in the flight operations office, finishing his report. Passenger 12C, C. Reynolds, he typed, became verbally disruptive and non-compliant, used discriminatory and racist language towards fellow passengers and, by extension, crew. Created a hostile environment interfering with pre-flight duties. Deplaned per FIR 91.11 and company policy. Port Authority notified and met aircraft. His first officer, Tim, clapped him on the shoulder. That captain was a textbook pilot in command moment. Marcus just sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who wanted to do his job in peace. Just another day, Tim, he said, weary. When he got to his hotel, his phone was also blowing up, but with messages of support. Apex's CEO, the head of the pilots' union, old friends from the Air Force, Apex Air, seeing a PR disaster morph into a PR triumph, rushed out their own statement. We are incredibly proud of Captain Marcus Cole, who exemplifies our core values of professionalism, safety, and respect. He is a credit to this airline and to the entire aviation community. We stand with him and our entire crew. He was given a bonus. He was featured, against his will, in internal training videos on de-escalation. David and Maya, the father and daughter who had been at the center of the storm, watched the video that night in their own Chicago hotel. Wow, Maya said quietly, watching the applause. That was intense. It was, David said, putting an arm around her. It was awful, and it was amazing. You saw both, baby. You saw the hate, but you also saw the captain. You saw the whole plane. The hate is loud, but it's small. Remember the captain. Claire Reynolds was not a person anymore. She was a meme, a Karen. Apex Claire. She was the subject of 1,000 think pieces on privilege, racism, and the Great American Meltdown. She deleted her social media, but her face was everywhere. She was unemployable. The name Claire Reynolds was now a permanent, toxic asset. She spent 2 days in that beige hotel room before she finally, silently, checked out, using a credit card that would soon be declined. She was no longer an executive. She was no longer on a trajectory to the C-suite. She was just a ghost, walking through a terminal, forever grounded. Claire Reynolds's life, so carefully constructed with ambition and privilege, unraveled in less than 24 hours. The interview she coveted became a public denouncement. The career she built was destroyed by her own hateful, whispered words. She didn't just lose a flight. She lost her entire future, all because she couldn't stand to share a cabin with people she deemed less than. Captain Marcus Cole, on the other hand, became a national symbol of quiet strength, unshakable authority, and simple human decency. This story is a powerful, brutal reminder that the skies and the world have no tolerance for hate, and karma always, always has a final destination. What did you think of the captain's calm and collected response? Do you think the avalanche of consequences Claire faced was justified? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you appreciate stories of real-life justice and hard karma, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to our channel for more content just like this.